If you're watching over web TV, then you'll know this setting is a little bit different than normal. This is a temporary setup while we're doing the big remodel on our studio. So I'll be speaking to you from my office for the next few days and weeks. Nevertheless, there are times when you read something in the news that it just jumps out at you and hits you right in the face. Well, that's what happened this week. I was reading an article about the new foreign affairs chief of the European Union. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about this. Back in, what was it? I think it was 2009, when Europe voted to have their own constitution. It actually happened on November the 3rd, 2009, which was a huge prophetic fulfillment within itself, because what that meant was that the European Union was reborn, meaning the Holy Roman Empire was reborn. So when Europe adopted its own constitution, it was the official rebirth of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the goal had been to establish their own constitution and then to have a single president of the European Union and a foreign minister of the European Union. Well, that happened 16 days after they actually adopted the European Constitution. Well, it's time now for those terms to expire, and new people have taken the place. Cathy Ashton of Great Britain served as the Foreign Affairs Chief for the last 5 years. However, on November the 1st, a new foreign affairs person was inaugurated, Miss Federica Mogherini. She became the new foreign affairs chief. Interesting background. We'll talk about that later. But I was especially interested in what she had to say because one of her first places to visit was to Israel. Now, a lot of people thought that she might be pro-Israeli, and I'm not sure where these thoughts came from. But after you hear what she has to say, you can determine for yourself whether she is pro-Israeli or not. But this is what the article had to say. The top EU diplomat appealed Saturday for the establishment of a Palestinian state as the killing of an Arab Israeli by police fanned tensions following violent clashes in Jerusalem. Now remember, she only took office November the 1st. She's already in Israel last Saturday, so that would have been the 8th. So within 1 week of her taking office, she's in Israel. Now, Federica Mogherini, the European Union's new foreign affairs chief, said in Israel, the world cannot afford another war in Gaza after donor states once again poured billions of dollars into a reconstruction program following the summer's war with Israel. Here's what she said. We need a Palestinian state, and that is the ultimate goal, and this is the position of all the European Union. Now, you have to realize how powerful the European Union has become. The European Union now has 28 states. They now have a total population of over 500 million, and the European Union has become the world's #1 economic power, passing the United States of America in 2008. So when she says this is the opinion of all of the European Union, that has a lot of weight to it. Now, in addition to all those factors, the European Union is the #1 trading bloc with the nation of Israel. Geography makes everything close for the European Union to trade with Israel. As a matter of fact, the European Union conducts 40% of Israel's trade. If Israel would lose the European Union markets, it would be a major setback for the nation of Israel. Well, in the article, it continued on. It stated, speaking later to journalists in Ramallah, the top EU diplomat called for dividing Jerusalem. Now, Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu has said repeatedly There will be no dividing of Jerusalem. It is our undivided eternal capital. But here she is, only 1 week on the job, boldly saying that Jerusalem must be divided. Here's her words exactly. I think Jerusalem can be and should be the capital of two states, Mogherini said, touching on a sensitive issue that has blocked peace efforts for decades. Jerusalem is not just a beautiful city. The challenge is to show that Jerusalem can be shared in peace and respect, Mogherini said. The message is not for the people who live here. The message is to the rest of the world, she said. Now, listen to this carefully. It is not a Palestinian-Israeli situation. It is a global issue. Here she says that Jerusalem is a global issue. Now, that is especially striking when you realize that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas intends to go before the UN Security Council within the next 30 days or so, requesting that the UN pass a resolution that Israel must withdraw to 1967 borders within the next 3 years, and also that Israel must give up East Jerusalem so that it can become the capital of the Palestinian state. So here she is as a guest to a country openly endorsing the division of their capital, the city of Jerusalem. Now, I want to go back to the one statement. This is not a Palestinian-Israeli situation. It is a global issue. In other words, Israel, the world has to make these decisions. My mind goes to a prophecy in the Bible right now. It's Zechariah chapter number 14, verse number 2. Now, this is speaking of the battle of Armageddon. Here's what God said. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Now, what's the picture here? I'm going to bring all nations to battle. What's that talking about? Does that mean all 193 nations on earth will have troops in Jerusalem? No, it does not. But what it does mean is that the United Nations, which is the global representative of all the 193 nations, the UN will send a force down against Israel at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. We don't know exactly how the peace deal is going to come about, whether it's actually comes about by negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, or is there a chance that the efforts of Mahmoud Abbas, when he asked the UN to issue a mandate that Israel must withdraw from all territories occupied in the 67 war, is there a chance that the UN will actually do this? And at some point, Israel will refuse to do what the UN says? And then, in order to enforce its mandate, the UN will actually invade Israel. Now, the UN is going to invade Israel. The world community is going to invade Israel. It's prophesied right here in the Bible. The prophecies never fail. They always come to pass. So, we're watching the prophecy, and then we're listening to the words of Federica Mogherini as she is in Jerusalem just a few days ago. I want you to hear her words one more time. This is not a Palestinian-Israeli situation. It is a global issue. It's like she's asserting the right for the world government to overrule national sovereignty. And that's what she means, actually. Because, ladies and gentlemen, hear me carefully. We are right now watching the shift from the nation-state form of governing our world to the the status of global governance, where there will be a one world government. I'm reminded of the words of Strobe Talbot in his now famous article, July the 20th of 1992. The name of the article was The Birth of the Global Nation. And in that article, he said that in the 21st century, national sovereignty as we have known it will cease to exist. We will all answer to a single global authority. Well, is that coming to true right now? There's going to be a single global authority, a world governmental situation, and he was referring to the United Nations then, and it's actually becoming that now. There are many people that are saying that national sovereignty really no longer exists right now. Oh, by the way, Strobe Talbot had left being official. He was a Deputy Secretary of State under the Clinton administration. Now he's the president of the Brookings Institute, one of the most influential think tanks in the world. So everything is moving this direction. Who believes in global government? Well, the Clintons believe in it. The Bushes believe in it. President Barack Obama believes in it. That's the reason he didn't want to go into Iraq against ISIS alone. He insisted on putting together a coalition of allies. And so today, France is bombing in Iraq. Great Britain is bombing in Iraq because this is a multinational force representing the world community. Same thing happened with Muammar Gaddafi. When the UN passed a resolution against Libya and against Muammar Gaddafi in particular, then the next day after the resolution was passed, the airplanes of NATO began to drop bombs on Libya at that time, and they ultimately drove Muammar Gaddafi from power, and he died in his time of resistance. So the point is, the Bible prophesies a world government for the end time. And we're watching it now. One more time, listen to the words. This is not a Palestinian-Israeli situation. This is a global issue. So here we are, entering the one world government prophesied for the end time.